a stick, and he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you defy. Today the Lord will conquer you. I'm going to say that again. Today the Lord will conquer you. Today the Lord will conquer you.
Yes, sir.
I want y'all to remember that, okay? I have that highlighted in my text. Keep that in mind for me. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give it to us. Everybody repeat after me. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give it to us. One thing we have to understand when we're reading through this text, who David is and who Goliath is. All right? So I just jotted down some quick notes. If we're going through who Goliath is, and if you're familiar with the story of David versus Goliath, just raise your hand for me. All right. Goliath, his name, literally meaning giant. Doesn't it just sound big, Goliath? Don't that just sound like somebody that's huge? All right. He was from the Philistine city of Gath, 6 cubits in a span, which is how big he was, which is equivalent to 10.5 feet tall. And for 40 days, he challenged the Israelites and defied God. So for 40 days straight, all right, he stepped to them, this huge warrior, right? He's been fighting since he was little. He stepped to them and he challenged them. He said, send me your best warrior and I'll fight him and I'll kill him. Send me your best one for 40 days straight, all right? Now that's Goliath. David, he's the son of Jesse. Jesse, I believe, has 8 sons. David is the youngest. He was essentially chosen as king, if you read a little bit earlier in the text. He was a young and he was a good-looking fellow, all right? I'm telling you guys this to put this whole thing into context. And if I could I step down from the mic?
Take your throat care as much as you want.
Because I really don't want to use...
Go ahead.
Can y'all hear me good? Yeah. Okay, this is where I'm most natural. Robert, come here. Come here, Robert, come on. It's my little cousin, y'all. Essentially, what I just told you guys, in size comparison, if we're reading this story, David, young, handsome, he handsome, right? Yeah, he a Jameson. Goliath, I'm big. David, in size, Goliath, I'm huge. That has to be in context when we're reading this text. Because what we just read was essentially just the battle, but we didn't read what led up to the battle. All right, so when we're talking about giants, what we have to understand is, number one, everybody in this room is dealing with some giant. All right, so for 40 days straight, that giant was attacking him, egging him on, right? Egging on the Israelites, right? He was saying, send me your finest warrior and I will kill them. Get this, David is the youngest, right? David is the one who ended up fighting him. Because if we read a little bit earlier, we come to find out that his 3 oldest brothers were sent to the war to go fight. His 3 oldest brothers were sent to the war to go fight. He's just a shepherd boy, right? He's faithful in his work. One day his dad says, you know what? David, I want you to go and feed your brothers. Take care of the soldiers. Go take them some bread. Feed them, nourish them, and come back with me with some good news. So go over there for me, Rob. Right? He sends him off. Essentially, when David arrives at the battle, because remember, the soldiers were already prepared for battle, right? There's a valley here. You got the Israelites on one side, and you got the Philistines on one side. There's a valley in between them. Essentially, what happens is when they arrive for battle, they're up there, they're getting ready for battle. David comes up. David's like, yo, what's going on? What's up? What's going on? He literally hears this giant, Goliath. He hears what he's saying about God, about the people. Send me somebody and I'll kill them, right? Everybody else gets scared. They're scared. They're terrified. They don't know what to do. He's the youngest, okay? He says, well, what happens if you kill Goliath? and Saul, who's the king at the time, he's like, well, you'll get to marry my daughter. You'll become rich. You'll be tax-free. David's like, hold up now. Okay. So he asked somebody again. He walks over, he asks somebody, so you're telling me if I fight Goliath and I kill him, essentially, I'm going to be tax-free, I'm going to get some money, and I'm going to be able to marry his daughter? They say yes. Stay with me. I'm telling y'all a story. Stay with me. His older brother, I believe his name is Eliab, his older brother, okay, he overhears David asking them, what is the reward going to be if I slay him? He gets upset. He's like, my man, what are you doing? You don't listen. Dad told you to go do this. Why are you here? Leave. And eventually King Saul at the time, he heard about what happened. So David rose up to him. He sends for him. He's like, yo, let me holler at David. He sends for him and David arrives. Saul is like, what are you doing? He tells him, he's like, listen, I believe that I can fight Goliath. This is the youngest. He's a handsome young man, the smallest essentially in size of all the soldiers out there. Okay? He tells King Saul, he says, listen, I want to fight Goliath. I want to do it. King Saul looks at him and he says, you don't have the experience. You're too small. You're too young. You're going to lose somebody who he respects, somebody who he admires. This could essentially be a family member doubting him at the time when he needed courage and faith and belief the most. How many of you, by the raise of your hands, have ever wanted to tackle something in your life and somebody close to you shut it down? Just raise your hand for me. Every single person in this room. See, David, before he even got to that battle with Goliath, he was doubted by his brother. He was doubted by the king. Two people who he probably looked up to, who he probably admired, who he probably said, one day I want to be like. But before he even got the chance to fight that battle, they said, my man, you cannot do this. You cannot do this. What we have to understand in this room is what got David to the point of fighting Goliath was the fact that he had to separate himself from the army. If you notice, this whole time as we're reading the text, he's getting closer and closer and closer and closer towards the fight. I'm going to do that again. This entire time as we read towards the fight, he's getting closer and closer, even though they're saying, no. He's getting closer. He's getting closer. He's getting closer. No. Why are you going? He's getting closer. He's getting closer. When he's about to fight, King Saul, he gears him up because eventually he gets persuaded. He says, you know what, young man, I like your faith. I like your courage. I'm going to let you fight him. Let me go ahead and give you some armor, some shield, some sword and everything. David's like, this is not me. This isn't me. I don't need this. Essentially, what he fought Goliath with was the Lord, was faith. Understand this, people, when we fight battles, because Goliath had weapons, his shield, he's super big. You don't have to fight the battle the same way the battle is coming at you. Negative people. Think about it. Negative people, toxic relationships, toxic family members. You don't have to fight them the same way they are fighting you. It's a spiritual battle. And if you really examine the text, you'll understand that he fought him with spiritual weapons. Spiritual weapons is what we need, folks. Spiritual weapons. Spiritual weapons. There's a time and a place for everything, because believe me, everybody in this room, I know we want to tell some people off sometimes. Y'all got any Scorpios in the room? Somebody else? The only one? I just feel like Scorpio, sometimes we can be a little difficult. Sometimes we want to tell people off. But there's a time and a place for everything. I tell you that to say this, folks. Your weaponry in which you're fighting your battle with has to be selective. All right? Think about that size comparison. David was essentially the size of my little cousin Robert. Goliath, this huge beast of a man. He disrespected David as soon as he saw him. He literally laughed at him like, this little handsome boy, you coming at me? What are you doing? But he had faith and he had perseverance. With faith, folks, all things are possible. Repeat after me. All things are possible. All things are possible. It requires faith. It requires action. There are some things that we want to do in our lives, folks, whether it's pursue a career, start a business, leave a relationship, get a gym membership, join a church. It requires action. It requires action. Everybody else was paralyzed with fear. Everybody was so scared. Think about it. That entire army was scared. They stopped. David went towards him. Action was the cure. Action was the answer. Action was the way. Action, faith, spiritual weapons, perseverance. And I'm going to leave y'all with this because I don't want to, be up here for too long. I'm going to leave y'all with this. There are some things we want to get over in our life, right? Raise your hand if there's some things that you want to get over, some giants that you want to defeat. Just raise your hand for me. Remember this. You cannot conquer what you don't confront. You can't conquer what you don't confront. David was going towards the problem. He's like, I want all the smoke. I want all the action, right? Right? He's like, I want it. You cannot conquer what you don't confront. Sometimes we think as human beings that just by ignoring something, we're conquering it. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean you conquer it. You have to confront it. God has given us strength and faith and courage and power to do those things. And it's literally an example proof in this text. It's all in this text, folks. It's in the text. It's on y'all. Y'all believe that? Amen. So y'all believe that? All right, I'm done. Amen.